Your morning is not just the beginning of your day. It is the moment your brain decides what kind of day this will be. And most people lose that battle before they even leave the bed. Not because they are weak, not because they are lazy, not because they lack ambition, but because the first hour of the day is quietly programming the mind, and almost nobody notices it happening. You wake up. Before your feet touch the floor, your hand reaches for the phone. Not consciously, not with intention, almost automatically. A notification, a message, a short video, a headline, a swipe, then another, and in less than 10 minutes, your brain has already received more stimulation than it was designed to handle so early. The day hasn't even started, but your attention is already fractured. Your mind is already reactive. Your nervous system is already chasing noise, and your discipline has already been weakened. This is the part people underestimate. They think discipline is decided later. When it is time to study, when it is time to train, when it is time to focus, when it is time to work. But discipline is not born in the middle of the day. It is born in the first decisions you make, when your brain is still soft, impressionable, and vulnerable. The first hour is not neutral. It teaches your brain what to expect. It sets the emotional temperature. It defines the rhythm of attention. And it creates the pattern your mind will try to repeat for the rest of the day. If your morning begins with speed, novelty, distraction, and easy dopamine, your brain learns that this is the standard. And once that standard is set, everything slower begins to feel painful. Reading feels boring. Work feels heavy. Silence feels uncomfortable. Effort feels unnatural. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your mind was introduced to chaos before it was introduced to direction. And that changes everything. Think about how most people start the day. They do not wake up and enter clarity. They wake up and enter consumption. They absorb before they think. They react before they choose. They receive before they create. And little by little, they become mentally dependent on stimulation before action. This is why so many people feel tired before the day even begins. Not physically, mentally. Because their mind was pulled in 10 directions before it had the chance to anchor itself in one. And once the brain enters that scattered state, focus becomes expensive. What should feel simple starts to feel heavy. You sit down to do something important, and suddenly your thoughts are noisy. The task feels bigger than it is. Your patience is lower. Your resistance is higher. You look for your phone again. You check something quickly. You lose momentum, and then you blame yourself. You say you need more discipline, more motivation, more willpower. But the truth is darker than that. The problem started much earlier. Your morning trained your brain to seek interruption. That is why the first hour matters so much. Because in that hour, your brain is highly suggestible. Your attention has not fully stabilized. Your emotional state is still being shaped. And whatever enters first tends to dominate what comes after. If the first thing you feed your mind is urgency, your brain enters urgency mode. If the first thing you feed your mind is comparison, your brain enters insecurity mode. If the first thing you feed your mind is stimulation, your brain begins craving more stimulation. And then, when real life asks you for patience, effort, and sustained attention, it feels like punishment. This is how people accidentally train themselves to fail every morning. Not through one dramatic choice, but through a sequence of tiny, repeated patterns. Wake up, check phone, consume, react, rush, scatter attention, lose center, spend the rest of the day trying to recover, again and again, day after day. And the worst part is that this feels normal, because it is common, because everyone does it, because it is socially invisible. But common does not mean harmless. What is repeated becomes wiring, and what becomes wiring starts to feel like personality. People start saying things like, "I'm just not a morning person. I can't focus early. My brain only works later. I'm naturally distracted." But many times, this is not identity. It is conditioning. It is not who you are. It is what you have repeated. And anything repeated long enough starts to feel permanent, even when it isn't. Now, here comes the important shift. If the morning can train your brain in the wrong direction, it can also train it in the right direction. That is the good news. Because your morning does not need to be perfect. It just needs to stop sabotaging you. This is not about becoming one of those people who wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for 40 minutes, drink green juice, journal in sunlight, and speak to the universe before breakfast. That is not the point. The point is much simpler. Your first hour must stop teaching your brain that distraction comes before direction. That is all. You do not need an aesthetic routine. You need a strategic one. You need a morning that protects attention before the world starts stealing it. Because once your attention is stolen early, the whole day becomes harder than it should be. So what should change? First, stop making your phone the first authority of your day. If the first voice your brain hears every morning is the algorithm, the inbox, the notifications, the noise of other people's urgency, then your mind is no longer your own. It has already been occupied. Your day begins as a reaction, not a decision. And reaction is the enemy of discipline. Discipline needs intention. It needs space. It needs stillness long enough for you to choose. Second, create one small action that belongs to you before the world enters. Not a huge ritual, not a dramatic transformation. Just one act that tells your brain, I lead first. It can be making the bed, drinking water, opening the window, standing in silence for 1 minute, writing one sentence, reading one page, stretching for 30 seconds. The action itself is less important than the message it sends, because that message is powerful. I move before I consume. I choose before I react. I direct my attention before I give it away. That is how discipline begins. Not with force, with sequence. Third, reduce stimulation early. Do not flood your mind before it can stand on its own. Your brain does not need fireworks in the first 10 minutes of consciousness. It needs orientation. It needs calm. It needs grounding. It needs a chance to wake up without being attacked by novelty. Because once novelty takes over, ordinary effort starts to feel unbearable. And discipline depends on your ability to tolerate ordinary effort. That is what people miss. Discipline is not intensity. It is tolerance. Tolerance for slowness. Tolerance for repetition. Tolerance for quiet effort. Tolerance for the absence of instant reward. And if your morning is built on hyperstimulation, that tolerance gets weaker. The mind becomes impatient, restless, needy, hungry for something faster, louder, easier. Then the day collapses into shortcuts. You procrastinate more easily. You get irritated faster. You switch tasks too often. You lose depth. And by the end of the day, you feel guilty without fully understanding why. But the day did not collapse randomly. It followed the pattern you introduced in the morning. This is why mornings are so dangerous and so powerful. They are not just a window of time. They are a training ground. Every morning, your brain is asking one silent question. What kind of reality should I prepare for today? And your habits answer. If your answer is noise, urgency, comparison, stimulation, speed, your mind will prepare for chaos. If your answer is clarity, breath, sequence, intention, direction, your mind will prepare for discipline. That is the real game. Not motivation, not inspiration, not self-criticism. Training. Subtle, daily, repeated training. And the people who seem more disciplined are often not stronger than you. They are simply protecting the first hour better. They are not giving their attention away too early. They are not entering the day already fragmented. They are not making chaos the first thing their brain tastes every morning. They understand something most people don't. The quality of your morning does not just affect your mood. It affects your standards. It changes what your brain will accept, what it will crave, what it will resist, and what it will avoid. So, if your life feels harder than it should, if focus feels more difficult every week, if important tasks feel heavier than they used to, if your discipline disappears too quickly, do not start by asking what is wrong with your character. Start by asking what your morning is teaching your brain. That question changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you stop blaming yourself blindly. And once you stop blaming yourself blindly, you can finally redesign the system. So, tomorrow morning, do something different. Do not let the phone speak first. Do not let urgency enter first. Do not let the algorithm decide the emotional tone of your day. Take 1 minute back, then another, then one action that belongs to you. Let your brain learn a new lesson, that your attention is not public property, that your morning has direction, that you are capable of leading your own mind before the world starts pulling it apart. And if you do this consistently, something subtle begins to happen. The day feels lighter, focus arrives sooner, resistance decreases, and discipline stops feeling like war. Not because life became easier, but because your mind stops starting from behind. Now ask yourself honestly, what is the first thing your brain consumes every morning? And is it making you stronger or weaker? If this video made you realize that your morning may be silently destroying your discipline, comment "Morning Trap" below. And if you want to keep rebuilding your focus, your discipline, and your mind in a world designed to distract you, subscribe now and watch the next video on screen. Because the first battle of the day is quiet, but it decides more than most people will ever admit.